What's going on, guys? Hey, this is Coach JC, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Win All Day podcast show. I am super stoked and excited about our guest today, and I cannot wait to bring him on. But before we do, if you're a frequent listener, you know what time it is. If it's your first time, it's time for our Win All Day winning confession. We believe that if you want to win and you want to live a winning life, then you better speak words that are winning. If you can't live a winning life speaking words of defeat. So if it's your first time, let's get a little wild. Feel free to repeat after me. Today is my day. Nothing will get in my way of me being the best version of me. I am here on purpose. I have a purpose. I am strong. I am passionate. I am fearless. I choose faith. I am a winner. I will win and win all day. Yes, you are a winner, and I believe that after today's show, you're going to win more. I'm here with my main man, the one and only Mr. George Bryant. What is up, sir?
Dude, what a pleasure, and how fucking pumped up I am already.
Let's go. Let's go. Man, I'm super stoked to have you on the show today, man. I believe in what you do. We were connected through a mutual friend, the one and only Alex Sharfin, who I know you love and I love. And so I want to kick this show off really quick, just giving you a very informal introduction. And then I want to throw it over to you for the listeners, the viewers that might be watching that say, man, I'm not real familiar with who George Bryant is. I want you just to talk to everybody on how we got to where we are today. So really quick, guys, this is my man, George Bryant. He is a dad, a podcaster, a Marine combat veteran, digital marketing consultant, New York Times best-selling author, heart-centered entrepreneur on a mission to be the best human being that he can be so that he can help others do the same. Unapologetically authentic, giving others permission to be themselves. This is my man, the one and only. Please welcome George Bryant to the Win All Day podcast show.
Bro,
George.
You are officially hired to intro me to every keynote, every podcast. Like, I'm in. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Let's go, man. I'm excited to have you. And let's do this, man. I want you to just catch everybody up to how we got to where we are today, man. I've read a little about your bio, did a little research on you. You have an amazing story of overcoming and doing some great things. But people see you today, and we're going to talk business. We're going to talk success. We're going to talk winning, high performance. But they don't see success sometimes up here. They forget what had to happen in order to get here. So take us back to your childhood and just catch us up to your story, George Bryant, and how we got to where we are today, my man.
Man, I love it. And I have to say, hearing the accolades, hearing the accomplishments reminds me of one thing, is that I'm not any of those things. I'm a human who cried twice today already, who's had anxiety, who has anger, who has doubts and fears and insecurities, but has learned how to have a relationship with them and not be a slave to them. And, the accomplishments are just a byproduct of that relationship. And so I like to go there because I think all too often, there was a point in my life where I became so wrapped up in the identity of the accomplishments that I lost who I truly was. And that's when it didn't go well. And so I say that just for everybody listening, because, I think every human being on this planet and on this earth does the best that they can in every single moment. And the more we have grace in that space and integrity in that space and realize that we're just humans and we can direct that energy out when we have it, the better off we are. And so that helps me get back into my story for everybody. So I grew up Goodwill Hunting territory.
Wait, George, let's just pause, man. Let's just pause because, bro, you took it deep already, man. Like, I can't just move on after that. Like, because you said,
man.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Like, there's people listening right now. And I think this is one of the greatest questions you could ask yourself in life is, who am I? Mm-hmm. Right? Who am I? We're talking about identity. You brought up the word identity. For you to show up and be able to say, I'm going to unapologetically show up authentically me. I'm not going to show up trying to be somebody else on social media. I'm not going to show up a fraudulent person. Like, there's so many people right now that are listening, George, as we get in this podcast, that their life right now is not where they want it to be. Their business is not where they want it to be because they cannot and have not shown up that authentic, unapologetically them. And so let's pause there for a second and just let's dive in, man. Like, what would you say to that person right now that's listening and say, man, I'm struggling with identity right now, George. Like, what's the first step for them to say, man, I'm in an identity crisis. Where do I go?
Yeah. Oh man, what a good question. And first, for that person, for you listening, the hardest part is already done. because acknowledging and accepting that that's where you are literally means that you've already won the race. It's just a matter of time before you cross the finish line. You're already in momentum. You're already going, because there's only two places to be in this: either completely unhappy with your life and in denial on how you got there, or completely unhappy, want to change something and aware that it was the choices that we made that created this result. And now we can make other ones. And so the one thing that I tell people, and I tend to use marketing and business as a teaching lens, because everybody wants to make money, right? Everybody wants to make money. They want to have an impact. They want to do all of them. Like, cool. So I kind of Trojan horse the shit out of you, because nobody has a marketing problem. Everybody has a relationship problem, either with themselves, their team, or their customers, informed in that order. And all too often in today's society, in the world that we live in, instant gratification, instant distracted, instant validation, instant edification.
Yeah.
You can Google anything to edify your current position, whether it's true or not. And what we fail to realize is that in most of the world that we live in, we are taught to ignore the one relationship that we're guaranteed to have for the rest of our life, which is ourselves. Distract, numb out, Netflix, YouTube, social, endless scrolls, dopamine, drugs, alcohol, food, blank, 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 blank. And we live in a world where it keeps convincing us that the less time we spend with ourselves, the better. But yet, when we look at our idols, when we look at the people that we want to be like, there's an increasing time spent alone correlated with the level of success that they have. And so for me, the first thing I would tell you to do is I would tell you to go stand in front of a mirror for 5 minutes in silence and just look at yourself. Just go actually see yourself. See yourself, see the color of your eyes, see the beauty of your nose, the shape of your face, see that person, that man or that woman that is standing in front of you that has gotten you to this point. That person that literally gets you up every day, the body and the mechanism and the machine that creates these feelings and allows you to love and allows you to give and allows you to be listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
And start learning how to coexist with it from a place of, wow, that's me. And have a journal when you're done and just start writing down what it is that you notice, what it is that you see without making it wrong. Because in order for us to truly be expressed, we have to know where we are. And we have to know what our come from is. We have to know what our position is. We have to know what our beliefs are. We have to know what our feelings are. And we have to learn how to relate to them so that when we turn around to the world, we can utilize them as an effective tool. Because if you don't think like the world's best athletes or the highest performers or entrepreneurs have self-doubt, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
What they have is they have a relationship with it to turn that into positive energy once it's been cleared through. And all of it comes down to a relationship with yourself. And so for me, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't like where I am in life, I'm like, me neither. But I love where I am because now I get to go to somewhere else and everything's an opportunity. And what I've realized in life, and we'll get into my story, is that you're either progressing or regressing. This illusion of stagnation isn't really true. Stagnation is nothing more than slow death. And so when we're ruminating, when we're in our brain and we're like, I'm so bad, or I did this, or I did that, or I didn't do this, all we're actually doing is giving evidence and more evidence to the things that we don't want, rather than realizing that, like me as a man, I've caused a lot of pain in my life. I was an addict. I attempted my life. I've done horrible things, but I'm not a horrible human. I made choices that had consequences, which then in today's day and age, I get to make choices that create different results based on my lessons and experiences from those consequences. But none of it happens if I pretend that everything is okay, or if I just check these boxes, or if I try to find the easy pill, or read a book, or hire a coach, or tell somebody to tell me how to do it. There's a reason that most of the things that we try and change come back to the same result that we were avoiding in the first place, because we keep going outside of ourselves. And so for me, it's really having the willingness to be unapologetically authentic with yourself, like to be radically honest. There's an incredible book called Radical Honesty. And, you know, for me, what that means is like when I get on a podcast, like I've cried twice this morning. I spent a good hour today in my meditation spot wrestling with these inner thoughts that weren't necessarily true. And I practiced listening to them rather than making them wrong. And it was funny because in a moment's notice, all of a sudden it just went away. And I was like, okay, cool. That's not wrong that I took an hour to do that. It's amazing that I did. And then I come out of it ready to go crush my calls and record my podcast and call my team and run the thing. because I make sure that I always prioritize the relationship with myself first. And when everything comes from that, true alignment, true conviction, like true integrity of like, hey man, I've had a rough couple of weeks and I'm still going to wake up and show up every day. But as long as I'm acknowledging my truth, it's actually putting me into a position of power. It's only when I deny its existence that it gets in the way of my success. And so that's kind of how I see it.
Powerful, bro. And that's why I had to stop you there, because I think this is, for me, in what I do in coaching, I think this is probably the number one thing that holds people back. And so I'll never forget, George, man, when I was at my lowest point, my quick Cliff Note version for you, but also the listeners, the viewers, I had big goals and dreams to play basketball. That's what I was going to do. Division I level. I was going to rescue my mom and my sister from the poverty-stricken life in Jersey. I was going to show my dad we didn't need him. Make a long story short, I threw that basketball opportunity away freshman year in Oklahoma when I got a young girl on campus pregnant. And they said, hurry up and get married. We got married. We're divorced in 8 months. And now I ended up in a custody battle, suicidal, depressed, over $400,000 in debt. It was very hard to do what you said to do, George, to look in the mirror.
Sure.
Because I hated who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was living with my identity in the past mistakes. And there was so much guilt. There was so much shame. There was so much condemnation. And I think so many times, we're guilty of labeling ourselves. And you said this, right? It's okay to have this kind of day. It's okay to feel this way, but you can't start to label yourself as that. Right? And so I remember picking up a book, a Tony Robbins book that somebody gave me. And it said this quote, the meaning of anything in life only has the meaning you choose to give it. And so many times, George, we assign a situation meaning, right? And we start to, as human beings, we make stuff so much more magnified and worse than it is. And I remember for myself, I had to stop saying that I am whatever it was, identifying with all this guilt and this shame and throwing away my story. And I had to say, you know what? I made some choices, right? I take ownership of that, and it didn't serve me. But it doesn't mean I am a loser. It doesn't mean I'm going to be broke the rest of my life because I'm $400,000 a day. It doesn't mean that I can never not be a great dad and go on to be. And so I think what you said is powerful. And what would you say to the person right now that says, George, it sounds sexy, it sounds great, it sounds cool, but when I look in the mirror, I hate myself. I'm guilty of labeling myself. Every time I get up, I'm my worst enemy. I'm telling myself I am broke. I am a loser. I can't be this. I can't be that. What would you say to that person that's guilty of putting labels on themselves and they're trying to break that right now because they hate what they see when they look in the mirror?
I love it. And I'll be blunt. Stay in the mirror until you're exhausted saying it and you have nothing left to say.
Woo!
And get it the fuck out.
Woo!
The end. Because I can't. Like, it took me 10 years to reprogram my language patterns. Like, my wife is an NLP and hypnotherapist, like, practitioner, and has been for 20 years. So like, I was in this environment and she still makes fun of me. Like, I used to say things like, you complete me. And she would like, ooh, and she loved me enough and had enough boundaries and containers and tight ones that like held me accountable. Now I like come home and I make fun of myself because I'll be like, oh babe, like this is what I'm feeling. She's like, remember when you used to tell me that that's who you were? And I'm like, oh yeah, totally. But here's the thing. No one's coming to save you. I don't care what coach you have. I don't care what person you have. I don't care any of it. Here's how I know you're staying by choice. A lot of us find comfort in the chaos because it's predictable and we've learned how to thrive in it.
Say that again, bro.
A lot of us find comfort in the chaos because it's predictable and we've learned how to thrive in it.
Ooh, come on.
And the reason is because every time it gets close to breaking, we ask somebody else for advice or think somebody else is going to give us the answer that allows us to stay stuck in the pattern. And the truth is that if you're even having the thoughts and the awareness that I'm talking negative to myself and I'm doing that to myself, you're screaming for help and basically saying, I'm not willing to hold myself accountable. And all that tells me is that it doesn't hurt bad enough yet, or that it's not tied into a consequence enough yet, or it's just simply a choice. And it always comes down to choices. So if you have a lot of shit to say about yourself, pick a medium and say it. And then I dare you to try to watch it or read it and see what happens and see how quick you will stop. Because would you ever talk to your mother like that, or your children like that, or your best friend like that? Or would you even talk to a stranger on the street? No. But when chaos is ambiguous, it allows us to live in it. And until you give clarity to the chaos and you write down all the things that you're thinking about yourself, or you say it into a mirror and you hear it, or you record it on video and you watch it again, or you put it into an audio note and you hear it, it's going to be ambiguous enough that you're not truly feeling the pain of how bad it's keeping you stuck. And the moment you do, the entire belief system will get shattered because you won't be able to stand to read it, listen to it, or even have that feeling anymore. And that will create the clarity that you need to move forward.
Man, so powerful. Guys, if you're just tuning in right now, this is Coach JC, the Win All Day podcast show with my man, George Bryant. He is spitting fire. And so, George, like, think about this, right? I think so many times in what you just said, so many times our identity comes from, you know, our past mistakes, our failures, what we were told, or it can also come from, you know, what we do. So in what I do and you do, dealing with a lot of high performers, their identity might not be in past mistakes and failures or the last game they had a turnover or whatever it is, but it could be more in their career, their job, and they start to identify as something. And this is just as dangerous, right? They start to identify as something. I'm a basketball player. I'm a CEO. I'm a police officer. I'm in the Marines. And so the reason I'm pausing here is because, yes, I want to get into business, and you're very successful at business, and you have a lot of great insight today. But man, reading through your stuff, bro, like you were rocked.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically, sexually abused, right? And then because of that, you ran off and joined the Marines, right? Active duty combat. And you talked about how that was like an escape. You were in this identity crisis. And the reality was like, I'm struggling as a young man, 13 years active duty, led to then identity, still screwed up, led to bulimia, right? And then a catastrophic injury, right? That ended your military career. So guys, we are talking to somebody right now that went through identity crisis just like me and is speaking not from like a good idea or theory. This is a guy that's speaking from real life experience on what he did to create who he is today, an authentically, unapologetically man, successful in life, and also is not scared to wear pink, right?
No, all day, every day, bro. Pink, pink bottles, pink shoes. Like, bro, that's my color. It's a color of royalty and I own it.
Let's go.
And I think, you know, what you're saying is so important. And listen to this, like, hear me. If you think I have it figured out because I'm speaking about it, let me be really blunt. And I've not talked about this publicly yet. I was sexually abused when I was 9 and 13. I literally healed my sexual trauma with my wife 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
We've been together for 10 years and we were on our way out. And there was a giant catalyst that after 10 years of consistent work, finally through honest conversations, choosing to lean in, plant medicine, silent retreats, breath works, coaching, like from the world's best, stem cells, brain injury repair, everything. And some catastrophic choices created a catalyst to literally 1 month ago, I had a somatic trauma release that literally healed 20 plus years of a sexual abuse pattern that was preventing me from going deep with my wife where we needed for our marriage and our relationship to work. And that happened 4 fucking weeks ago. 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
This is not a game about having a relationship at the finish line. It's about having a drive-by relationship with every win and loss, taking the lesson and playing again. Like every day, I get to earn my marriage. Every day I get to earn my children. Every day I get to earn my self-love. And there are days where I earn it in an hour. And there are days where I feel like my head is hitting the pillow. And in that last minute, I find it and I allow myself to earn it that day. And it's a game. It's a game that doesn't have a finish line. And the only thing we're ever going to be judged by is how we played it today.
Yeah.
And so I'm not in a monogamous relationship with my previous performances, nor the ones yet to come. I get to have a drive-by relationship and pick up things that worked and didn't work and make adjustments because the only guarantee is change. And if I'm not changing what I do every day, if I'm not changing my habits, my patterns, my behaviors, then what happens to any muscle? It atrophies. And then I sit here and I get pissed that I can't put on my letter jacket from varsity high school or still tie the world record, but I'm upset about results I don't have from work I didn't do, as my dear friend Jim Quick says all the time. And so what it allows me to do is this ability to get really, really clear is that in the morning, every day, I get to make a decision on who I get to be that day. And my decision is not mental. My decision is based on my routines and my rituals and the container that I create to give myself the best chance of success. What's my self-talk like? What's my meditation like? Like, did I lean in and get deep with my wife? Did I make sure my daughter felt how much I loved her before she drove to school? Did my 5-year-old know how amazing he was and what a gift he is to the planet? Do I know the difference that I get to make today? Does my team know? Did that video I make come from a place of honesty and transparency? And it's all about the choices that we make every single day. And it's hard. Like, I'm not going to sit here and placate anybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good when you're on the outs or you're looking for separate houses, or I don't know, during COVID, when I lost $2 million in 45 days, lost 500 grand a month in monthly recurring revenue, lost 2 companies, and I was left with nothing. Yeah. Did I want to quit? Of course. You know what I did? I moved up to our mountain house and I spent 60 days alone outside of my family, no talking to anybody, no business, no nothing. And I went on a hike every single day. And my intention was simple. I'm going to hike until I have clarity. It took 60 days. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to launch a podcast. The non-revenue generating thing that I could do. Like, literally, like the most non-revenue generating thing I could do to make my income. And I did. And I went to 3 shows a week. And now here we are 300 episodes later, back at the height of my career, owning 4 new companies, running events, running my mastermind, having a highly successful podcast, because I was willing to be in that relationship with myself, even when it hurt, when my wife said we were separated, when we couldn't do it anymore, when my PTSD was still triggered, when I was still having intimacy issues, when all I wanted was to off myself, but I wasn't capable of doing it, when I didn't know who I was. All I did was ask myself every day, well, if you don't know, what's one thing you can do to build a block that's going to go into the foundation of the man you choose to be? And all that meant for me every day, JC, was going for a walk. Some days it was 20 miles. Some days it was 2. Some days I would find a rock and lay on it for 4 hours. And one of my wise ass coaches, who's also one of my business partners and best friends, gave me this advice a long time ago. I called him and I said, hey man, everything's going to shit. And he's like, okay, how does it feel? I'm like, really, really shitty. And I was like, what do I do? He's like, can you still feel it? And I said, yeah. He said, sit with it longer. And that's what he would say to me. 6 months. That's all he would say to me. And he was teaching me how to develop a relationship with myself. Hard conversations are going to happen, and they have to happen, but we have to be willing to have them with ourselves. Why am I feeling this way? Like, what is it really going on? Without the story, but what's the fact? Like, what's the moment? What's the emotion? And typically when the exploration is done, we realize that the narrative is what's causing the feelings and not an actual event or fact that's keeping us stuck from what we want. And so I just wanted to share that to be authentic, because it popped into my brain and I felt like if I didn't share, I'd be lying. That every day that you can look at my Rolodex, you can look at my company portfolio, you can look at my podcast, my New York Times bestselling author, my #1 app. And 4 fucking weeks ago is when I had the shift that will literally determine the success of my relationship and the world that we create together with my wife 4 weeks ago.
Wow, man. First of all, man, you're a beautiful human being. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
I'm trying not to get emotional.
Oh, it's coming out of me. It's coming out. It doesn't matter. It's coming.
Yeah, because man, I know, like, you just sharing that, I believe, set some people free on the other side, bro.
Yeah, man. Like it's you know, when I think about like what the point of this is.
Yeah.
Like, nowhere do I ever want my son to be like, my dad made an impact because he was dull, or because he didn't really share the truth, right? Like, what's funny is like the correlation of marketing and entrepreneurship and business to life. It's like, well, how does marketing work? Well, when you stop and get somebody's attention, well, how do you do that? Well, you need to be a pattern interrupter. What's the best way to do that? Typically with some hard truth, right? And it starts by like using our own edge and increasing our range and our capacity. But like my truth, like, it doesn't get any easier. Like when I run my events, I laugh with my audience, right? I was like, hey, today's a 3-shirt day. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm on my 3rd shirt because I've sweated through the first 2. And they're like, oh, from running around the room? I'm like, no, because I'm nervous. Because I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. But if I don't find my edge every day and push it, I'm not growing, and it's not going to help you. And so it's just this process of like being willing to walk in the dark, to trust that I'll find a light when I need it, that when I put my foot down, it's going to be a step in the right direction. And if it's not, that I can pick it up and make an adjustment. But I think for most of my life, I checked boxes, like coming out of the Marine Corps and watching people get killed and losing 28 Marines, and like realizing that like my trauma is what made me one of the best Marines, and rooted it even deeper. And this was going to take years to unravel, 20 plus years of disconnection and hypervigilance and manipulation and trauma and all this stuff. But it would only change if I was willing to start. And so every day I've realized that I'm never going to kill myself. I'm never going to take my life, even though I attempted it. I've been in psych wards. I've been hospitalized. Like I've been through it all. And I have to be really honest that even when I'm down, even when I'm depressed, even when I feel like the entire fucking world is caving in on me, which happens more often than people tell you on their fucking social media life, is that even in that moment, I have to look in the mirror and say, yeah, but what are you going to do about it? And if option one is, well, I know I'm not going to take my life, then I'm only left with option two, which in that moment, I have two choices. I can either be miserable or I can make one step forward. And I've now committed my life to the minimum effective dose to get the maximum momentum, even when I'm stuck, even when it's hard. And there's days, and you'll appreciate this, like if I make a commitment to go to the gym, my current commitment is that I just walk or run a mile a day. That's it. That's my floor. That means that I might go to the gym with the intention of crushing a Tabata workout or hitting a hit or maxing out and not feel it. And all I do is walk a mile and then I go home. There was a point in my career when I was done being a competitive CrossFitter and I had every accomplishment. Like I was a fucking freak of nature. I even tied a world record for a standing box jump, and I'm 5'7". I landed on a 58-inch box at 5'7", right? And then I got done and I was like, holy shit, I'm only this capable because I'm addicted to fitness because I don't have to feel. I'm off-gassing anger every single day. I'm training 2 to 3 times a day. And so when I started working on that and becoming aware of it, my rule was simple, really, really simple. All you have to do is go to the gym every day for 90 days, which meant there were mornings I pulled into the parking lot and I didn't have the muster to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And I sat in the parking lot for a half an hour and drove home, but I still went to the gym.
Yeah.
And it's about creating containers or environments in our life. Parkinson's law, right? We will fill whatever container we create. And when we're intentional about them, it sets us up to win. And so every day I know that if I have a sticking spot or something gets in my way, or I have an emotional outbreak, or I get a tax bill that was unexpected, or I lose an employee or a company or whatever, I know my minimum effective dose in the most important areas of my life that are non-negotiables, that as long as I'm breathing, these get to happen every single day. Not have to, get to. Because get to is from a place of choice and power, and have to is from a place of obligation and scarcity. I get to walk. I get to fill my wife's bucket. I get to compliment my daughter. I get to text 5 friends that mean something to me and give away what I want to get. I get to come to my office and cry. And if I feel like recording it in that moment, it becomes a podcast. If I feel like keeping it sacred and intimate, it doesn't. But no matter what, I have it designed that there's always a net around me. And that's what keeps me in momentum.
Powerful, bro. So powerful. You said so many great things there. I think the first thing to touch on, man, is that, you know, having routines, right? We call it in the Win All Day, like in our winner circle, our mastermind, let's stack wins, right? Yep. It doesn't have to be these huge, big wins, right? But let's stack some wins. And so like what you said, I think so powerful, where, you know, I had plans to go to the gym, right? And it was in my routine, but maybe just pulling up to the gym, maybe just taking a walk. Where most people, what happens is they're led by feelings and emotions and they retreat, they pull back, right? Yep. Human nature, yep. Right? And so having those routines, I know for me, when, you know, thoughts of suicide and, you know, back in the day when I was going through what I was going through, having purpose around something and having routines was absolutely instrumental in my life. And yep. So if you're listening right now, right, take some of the stuff that George mentioned, right? You don't think you have to go win the Super Bowl on day one, right? You just got to move the ball. You don't have to score all the touchdowns on the first play. Just move the ball. And if moving the ball is going for a walk, if moving the ball is reading one page of a book, if moving the ball is listen to something that uplifts you, if moving the ball is getting an environment, move the ball. And that alone can be a game changer. And the other thing I think you said that's powerful, man, is like you sharing, right? And you didn't say this, but I'm saying this. You sharing and your story. I believe it's one of the most powerful ways to overcome.
1000%.
Like I'll never forget when I was going through what I went through and was able to overcome some of it. I enrolled in a Bible school, and this is not a faith-based lesson at all. But I remember somebody said, "Hey, you guys start sharing your testimony." That's what they call it. And I was like, all right. They're like, that's what's going to help you overcome this. Right now, you're hiding from it. Right now, you're shrinking. And I was like, I don't want anybody to know I was a mess. I was screwed up. I was all this. And this guy said, I dare you, the next speaking engagement you have, go share your testimony. And I'll never forget, I was in a small church, and I got up and I had my scripted speech, and I was going to do Coach JC. And I was just like, last minute, I was like, you know what? I feel led I'm just going to share my story. I went off a script. I shared my story of overcoming. It was the most powerful 60 minutes for everybody in the room. For me, it set me free. It gave me freedom. And for everybody else in the room, it was like this emotional, like crazy, ridiculous revival. And so I think what you did is powerful. And I think there's people listening right now that some of us, we just got to get confident. And I don't say confident, courageous enough just to start sharing some of the mess. Even if we haven't fully overcome it, even if we're not all the way through, that's where a breakthrough happens, right? Where the impossible becomes possible, where you start to share and you start to say, wait, I'm overcoming because maybe I'm not all the way through, but I'm halfway through. And I commend you for doing that, brother, because I think that's a powerful step. Anything you want to share on that?
Well, yeah, it's actually how this whole career started. I was a paleo food blogger with one of the largest blogs ever, but nobody knew why I was a paleo food blogger. Because I was a New York Times bestselling author on book tour teaching you how to eat healthy, and I was purging in the bathroom after my speeches because I was still bulimic.
Wow.
And so I was giving a massive keynote, and my wife, fucking angel, I love you, babe, looked me dead in the eye before my talk and said, "Are you really going to go up there and lie again?" And I knew exactly what she meant. And I had this talk, and I'll remember it to this day. The title of the talk was 3 Ways to Use Food to Create Breakthrough Results in Your Life. And it was about habit creation, how you eat 3 times a day and how you could form the habits. But all it was doing was lying, because I wasn't following any of my own advice. I was binge eating and still purging, as I was still struggling with body image and eating disorders. And yet I had an 8-pack. I'm a New York Times bestselling author, competitive CrossFitter, #1 app in the world. That's a health app. And I was living a lie. So what was the scariest fucking thing I could do? Tell the truth. So I never forget, I walked out onto that stage, and literally I thought everybody was going to leave. My career is over. It's going to end. It's going to do blank. And I looked up there and I'm like, I've been lying to all of you, because I want to give you this talk to tell you what to do, because I refuse to do it myself. But a lot of you don't know that I'm still actively bulimic because I was sexually abused, and I've been hiding behind my blog and using you to hold me accountable. And so here I am, all of me. And this is what it is. And then I gave the talk. And it's so funny because that's what set me free, because then I realized that business was what was keeping me in my addiction. I didn't want to be a food blogger anymore. I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want the pressure. I just wanted to be me. And that was the last day that I ever purged, I ever binged, I ever did anything. And then a year later, I was in a completely different career. I gave away that company as a Christmas present. And then I started using my marketing, my customer journey to teach people what I did to be so successful. And now I live in my passion. But that moment, without the integrity of that moment, without the challenge of the people around me, my wife, holding me accountable to my potential, not to my story, it would have never happened. And my life is defined by those moments, and they happen weekly. I'll call friends that I haven't talked to in 3 months, and I'm like, I think we haven't talked because I showed up like this, and I've been thinking this, and I'm making up this, and I wanted to clean it up. And then we're in business together 3 months later, or we're doing an event together, or we rekindle a connection, or we do blank. And our life is filled with opportunities for our testimony to be the leading edge to create the results that we want. Summaries belong in books. The moments belong in what you share. I don't ever want somebody's summary unless you're publishing a book. Other than that, it's always going to be the truth. It's always going to be real. It's always going to have the moment. Like even in marketing, You know, I say this to people. My friend Angie Lee said this at our event. She's like, don't talk about the pain, take them to the moment. Don't share the summary, give them the story. Because the story is what shifts people. The story is what moves people. The story is what creates a bridge and invites somebody to walk down it at their own pace because you led the way. Stories are what matter. And your willingness to get into them and share them and remember the moment is deepening your range, your capacity, and your impact, which is solidifying the validity of your life and solidifying that you're living in your truth. And quite frankly, at the end of every day, when I put my head on the pillow, I just want to make sure that my eyes close with integrity, that how I played that day was truthful, that it was honest, it was integrous, even if it makes me sweat. Like right now, my office is 62 degrees and I'm sweating through my t-shirt because even though I've processed all of this and I've done the work, my subconscious still has trauma patterns in my body. When I talk about my bulimia, my purging, all of it, of course I should fucking feel something. I'm a human. Of course I should. Now I know how to feel that and utilize that to realize the gain that I've made and how far I've come, and now use it to move into the next place. And I wish it was a complicated answer, but it really comes down to muscles. Compassion is a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. Integrity is a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. We have the ability to practice now more than ever. Like people's healing is catastrophically faster because you can connect with 1,000 humans a day where you used to have to go do 1,000 humans in 2 months. Like before social media, before the internet, like we literally have a hyper healing tunnel if decided to use correctly, to be utilized, to celebrate your wins and then move on and create another one, to be open to the feelings, to share your story, to share your testimony. Like the way that I see it is there's no other way to live. And trust me, like I've helped 2 companies get to $1 billion. I've helped multiples get to $1 and all of the founders or all of my business partners have one thing in common. When they get to the top and all they did was hide behind work, they're more miserable than when they started and they want to go back to having no money. Because there's one thing that everybody realizes, that you can't out money, you can't out hustle, you can't out success your lack of relationship with yourself. You can't, it's impossible. And it happens to be the #1 tipping point for every single entrepreneur to like rocket ship into their results, because it all starts with you. Your relationship with yourself bleeds into how your team responds. How your team responds bleeds into how they talk to your customers. How you feel is how your energy comes through in your video, in your meetings, in your talkings, and what you're doing. And there's one energy that's very, very magnetic, and there's one that's very repelling. And it all boils down to our level of depth and integrity in the relationship with ourselves.
So powerful, man. So powerful. I love this. I mean, I know you've done so many cool things in business. I love this conversation. I could talk about this all day because what you just said is my coaching style and what changed my life. Right? So many times we try to fix the problem, right? And we want to fix the business. We want to fix the marriage. We want to fix the financial situation. And people come to me all the time like, JC, man, I want to get to this place and do this. And I said, okay, let me ask you one powerful question, right? Who do you need to become? Right? And so addressing the person looking in the mirror, the hardest conversation you'll ever have, right? Like you said, you want to fix the business. Who do you need to become as a leader? Right? You want to fix the marriage. Who do you, well, what am I going to do? Take another date night? What am I going to do? No, fix you. Become the man you were called to be and that God called you to be, and watch your wife be sexually attracted to you again and shift the entire environment.
Yes.
And so I love this conversation. And so, you know, George, I'll never forget this. And I think this is so powerful for you and everybody listening. When I was fighting to be a dad, threw away my story in a custody battle. I was driving 12 hours from Oklahoma to Minnesota to see my daughter. False allegations, crazy stuff. People that know my story, it's just, you know, we're writing a book, making a movie on it because it's so, it looks impossible. It's absolutely a miracle. And so I went and got full custody of my daughter when she was 10. I raised her. She's now 21. Make a long story short, one of the times of me traveling up there to pick her up, I got up there and they didn't bring her. They just said, you're not seeing her. And I was devastated. I was down and out. I remember I had no money in the bank account. And I was just struggling. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get back to Tulsa. What am I going to do? I got my little Nissan Sentra. I started driving back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm in Iowa, pitch dark roads, past midnight, and I'm going 100 miles an hour. One of the times where I'm contemplating taking my life, having that conversation, 100 miles an hour, swerving off the road. Maybe your daughter's better without you. I'm just weeping. I'm crying. Why me? Playing that game we play. And I'll never forget, I get pulled over by a police officer, and I hear the sirens. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He comes up to the window, he knocks on the window, and he says, what are you doing? Are you trying to kill yourself? And I'm like, that would actually be pretty good right now, right? And so he just took this moment to just listen. And when you're desperate, you just share everything. And I'm sharing everything. I'm in a custody battle. I just want to be a dad. I threw away my basketball opportunity. I hate life, all this stuff. And he just listened and had this conversation with me. And he said this. He said, I don't know everything you're going to do in life, son, but here's what I do know. Everything you're going through right now is molding you, and it all has to happen for you to become that person. And I remember getting angry. I remember like, this guy has no idea what I'm going through. I don't even know if I'm going to get back. I don't have enough gas money. And he said, I'm going to let you go home safely, drive home safely. I'm going to follow you for a little to make sure you don't do crazy stuff. He said, but I just want you to remember it had to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I get in my car, I'm driving back, and this one statement created freedom in my life, right? Because the past mistakes, the failures, everything you went through, bulimic, the business, the marriage stuff, all this stuff, right? Our perspective a lot of times is we sit in that victim mentality. And poor me, sorry me, we never want to take responsibility. And I remember driving back, and I was like, man, God, I was praying. I was like, it had to happen. It had to happen. And for 4 hours, it was like this record. And that became my mantra. It became my new perspective. It became the new story. Everything I went through had to happen. Yeah, me getting a girl pregnant. Yeah, the false allegations. Yeah, broke as a joke. Throwing away my story. And people started to say, JC, man, I'm so sorry what you're going through. I said, whoa, don't be sorry. It had to happen. And people were like, you're crazy. Would this guy lose his mind? But how much in our life could shift, right? If we realize what you said, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. You said that. I don't have to, I get to. Yep. What about these small perspective shifts? It didn't, all this in my life, it had to happen. The chaos, the mess, the pressure, the noise, the horrible, the suicide, all the things, the thoughts. And when I adopted that one mindset, George, it shifted my entire life. Because I then gave it a new perspective that if it had to happen, it's going to serve me. And there's something on the other side. And maybe that most painful moment could become my purpose. And we're sitting here today on a show where all of this that you went through, we just touched on a few of these things, the abuse, the Marines, the discharge, the losing the business, the getting on stage, and all of that had to happen for you to be who you are today. And look how cool this is. On the other side of all of it happening and you getting your breakthrough, you becoming the guy that you're called to be. Think about all the amazing lives that you changed, not businesses. I'm not even interested in the multi-million-dollar business, the 7-figure, $8 million business. That's easy. But think about all the lives through George and all the lives that are going to be changed through this testimony on this podcast show because you overcame and all of it had to happen, bro.
Bro, and like, I'll pick a lane for people. We'll go spiritual or religious. God will never give you anything more than you can handle, and it's all by design. If you're spiritual, it's divine order, divine timing, and done intentionally to use the gift. And here's the most powerful part, is that you have to have a relationship with the pain to utilize it as a gift.
Come on. Powerful.
And so everything that you're saying is so true. Like, I think about this and like, it took me a long time to have a healthy relationship with death. As somebody who's witnessed it a ton and been the deliverer of it, that's a hard place to be. And mortality is a hard topic for some, myself was included. But I realized that the only reason I didn't have a relationship with this because I was making it all about me. And I was like, cool. And I started asking myself, and I ask myself this a ton. And my son is 5, my daughter's 17. And I do this in the car, and it's actually from a place of abundance. And I'm like, if I was to die in this car ride, who would show up to support my family, and how much would my kids know they were loved? And I measure my day and how much I give, support, and connect with other people, so that if there's ever that day that I'm driving home and I was only on your podcast once, that you'd get on a plane and come let them know that they were cared for because of the difference that I made.
Yeah.
That's what I say. That's what I ask myself every day. And it's a really beautiful place to be, but it doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't eliminate the weight of the responsibility of owning the companies, of the overhead, of taxes, of life, of food, of the world.
Yeah.
But it gives me meaning and purpose to realize that if I elevate myself to see the bigger picture, then the daily mundane doesn't really matter. And I'm fully in control of where I spend my time. And it's a really, really powerful thing to keep me going or keep me aligned or to put me back on the track or to get my rails going, because I've never been able to answer that question with, oh, I'll write another email. I'll launch a marketing strategy. I'll launch a new product. It's always been around my state of being. What am I giving? How am I shining light? The reason our branding is a lighthouse. And I want to share this because this was powerful for me. I had a shaman in the jungle a long time ago asked me, he was an asshole of love. He said, when are you going to stop suffering? And I said, when you tell me how. Why the fuck do you think I'm here? And then he's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. And I saw him tomorrow. He's like, how's your suffering going? And I was like, still here. And he's like, well, have you ever asked yourself, like, why? Like, why you suffer, why you're suffering, or why you're even here? And I was like, no. And he's like, maybe start there. And then the next day it happened and I was a little closer. And then one day I said, I don't know why. And he's like, and who do you think's supposed to decide that? And in that moment, I realized that I was living a life that was scripted by the outside world, and I was being a fucking pinball to every event that happened. And not once did I ever ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And what do I want to do? And so I wrote a personal mission statement for my life that day. And it was pen to paper, and I will never forget it. And all I wrote at the top of the paper was, why am I here? And I sat and I sat and I sat and I sat. And all that came out was to stand with structure in the face of resistance to create possibility.
Wow. Say it again.
To stand with structure in the face of resistance to create possibility.
What does that mean to you?
It means a lighthouse, that I build myself on a solid foundation to stand the test of time, so that my light is always on, even when the waves, the storms, the hail, and the seawater, because my light is always guiding somebody home, even if I can't see it.
So powerful, bro.
And that's when it became the branding of my business. It became our mission statement. It became a lighthouse. And funny story, the oldest lighthouse in use has been on for over 1,200 years, and it's only been turned off twice. Once when it went from whale blubber to kerosene, and once when it went from kerosene to electricity. But lighthouses are built to last forever, and so am I. My legacy, my impact, my words, as long as I give meaning to them and I look at them the right way. And so that was what I wrote that day. And every day I measure myself against that. Like, maybe I feel broken today. Maybe I feel down. Maybe I'm emotional. Cool. But how did I relate to it? How did I choose to act from it? What did I learn from it? What did I pick up for it? Right? Just constantly in this state of self-love and self-acceptance. And when I'm not, how can I get back into it? Where does this matter? Because what I remind myself is that even when I think I'm not doing a good job, or I'm not being loud enough, or I'm not being confident enough, or I'm not having the impact I want, is the moment I believe that, my light turns off, and I will never see the ill effect that it had on all the people in the world around me, just because my ego can't measure them. And so for me, it's the easiest way. And I had a personal development coach a long time ago, before I staffed, say to me, the easiest way to get unstuck is to give away what you want to get.
Come on, brother.
And I never got it because it seemed like a checkbox to me, but now I live it. It's like, God, like, I want some confidence. I'm like, cool. Who are my 10 friends that could use a boost of confidence right now? Texting them all. I could use some love. Who can I love? I could use some sureness. Who can I give sureness to? I could use some joy. How can I create joy for others? And it's really beautiful to watch it, because what it feels like is that I live in the matrix, because there's a part of my default that when I upset my wife or my kids are in business, I feel the internal program, the old ones start to take over. But then I have an out-of-body experience. I'm like, oh, look, it's about to do it. I feel like crap. I want to be a victim. I want to ask her what to tell me what to do. But I'm noticing myself feeling that, which means I can't fucking do that, which means then I have to choose what to do. and I get to feel how I feel and choose something different anyways. All right. Hey, babe, you, me, dinner tonight, 5 p.m. I love you.
Yeah.
And it's about action, and it's about progress, and it's about flexing that muscle over and over and over again. And the most beautiful part is that this is how you win business anyways. Huge. You work on the core, you build the foundation, and everything trickles out from there. Your marketing gets better, your customer journeys get better, your team meetings get better, your communication gets better, your messaging gets better, because you are the secret weapon. And I say this all the time, is like, I will never meet a carpenter who tells me that they can only build a house if the hammer color is a certain color. I could give them 7 different hammers and it wouldn't change how beautiful their house is, because it's never about the tool in the box. It's about the person who holds it. And so I can't stand when I help entrepreneurs or they come to me and they're like, oh, this coach told me I needed another tool. I'm like, fuck them. You are the tool. You are the gift. And it doesn't matter how many we throw in. You can go collect all the strategies you want, all the tactics you want, all the ideas that you want, all the hacks that you want. But if you don't change the person implementing them, they will create the same exact result that you have now.
Huge, bro. Absolutely huge. I do want to get into a little business, but I do want to, pause there, because you said so many powerful things. Guys, if you're listening right now, there's a few things that come to my mind. Like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but the first thing, like, what you sow is what you reap, right? You said, give away what you want to get. And I think so many times in life, if you're listening right now and you don't have what you want, so many times we're so caught up in me, right? Our problems, and we can't see beyond that. When you can go out and give, when you could go out and serve, when you could go out and give away, like you said, if you're searching for joy, I believe this works in any area of your life. My mom, growing up, I would give everything away. I was taught that by my mom. And as I got older, people were like, what are you doing? Somebody at church would say, I like your tie. I'm like, oh man, you do? I'd take it off and give it to them. Somebody say, I like your watch. I do that still. Yeah. And so my wife, even to this day, like in business, I'm giving away hats, I'm giving away shirts. She's like, did you look at the bottom line? I'm like, my mind can't even go there. I don't even focus on the money. I just believe if you give enough, you're going to get. Like, I just believe in that law of reciprocity and sowing and helping. And so I'm a big believer that if your life doesn't look the way you want it to right now, it's probably because you're so focused on the problems that you can't find a solution. Go out and serve. I don't care if it's at a soup kitchen. I don't care if it's at something in your local neighborhood. Go out and serve. Go out and give and watch how you receive. I think that's powerful. The second thing you said, not the second thing, but another thing you said that I want to hit on is, if you want a different answer, you've got to ask different questions. You had that interaction with that gentleman, and he taught you how to ask a different question, and that solicited a different answer and a response that changed your life. And so a lot of you got to start to ask different questions. You're asking the wrong questions every day, and that's why you're stuck. And so maybe the first step is do what George did and was challenged to do. Create a personal mission statement. We have them for businesses. We have core values for businesses. What is your life about? What's your mission statement for your life? What's the values, the directional guides that drive your life on a daily basis? If you're confused about that, like you don't know what you stand for, what you're about, then your life's always going to be a roller coaster all over the place, right? Yep. So those are the big 3 things that stuck out to me. You said, and the last thing was, what was it? Oh, purpose. I think anytime we know, like, there's got to be something bigger than just us. Right? There's got to be something bigger. I exist for your mission statement, the whole lighthouse, that's way bigger than just you.
Yep.
If it's always just about me, I got to get mine in my marriage. I got to get mine in my business. I got to make my money. You're going to wake up, just like you shared the examples, a very empty, unfulfilled person. Yep. When you have purpose and you live for something beyond just yourself, life is so much more fulfilling, and there's way, way less pressure, noise, and chaos, because you're not just living for you. And if the IRS bill tax comes, you can find a solution a lot faster, because it's not the end of the world, right? Every problem, anything you want to touch on from what I just said, man?
I love it. Number one is, I love that most of us, especially everybody listening to this, we have what I call convenient amnesia, is that when things are going well, we have no problem rattling off our accolades and how we've always figured it out. And when things are going bad, we have convenient amnesia that we can't remember any of those, and we're destined to fail. Yeah. But here's the thing. If you're listening to this and you've resonated with anything in this show, you've already proven to yourself 10 times more than you've needed to, that every challenge that's been put in front of you has been accomplished and handled.
Come on.
And the reason I said sit in the mirror and off gas all of the words is because the only thing stopping is your full belief and investment in yourself.
Come on.
You have all the evidence. You have all the ingredients. Just like I can give a Michelin star chef the crappiest ingredients in the world and he'll still make us an amazing dish. You can be dealt any card that you want or don't want. And I guarantee you that you'll find a way to win that game because you have, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And so that is number one. And number two, I want to give you a question prompt that to this day, 15 years later, after somebody asked me this question, it still breaks my brain when I'm stuck. And the question is this: what are you pretending not to know? What are you pretending not to know? And the second version would be, what are you pretending not to see? And if you can answer that question in the first 10 seconds, you haven't thought about it enough. And that comes back to that relationship with yourself. And one of my favorite practices that really changed everything for me. And I mean, I've done every breath work. I've done it with Wim. I've done holotropic breathing, transformational breath work. I've done silent retreats. I've done everything. And I mean everything. Every plant medicine you can imagine, like all of it. The number one practice to this day that still catapults me every single time is a stillness practice. It is an intentional practice of unattachment and boredom with an increasing time modality as much as possible. And so I'm going to challenge you that in the next week of listening to this, that you accumulate an hour of stillness. And there's rules. Rule number one, no music, no noise, no distractions. Rule number two, whatever happens in the moment stays in the moment. You can't journal, you can't write it down, you can't try to record it, you can't try to remember it. You have to pick a spot, sitting still, not walking, in your house, alone, out in nature, go to a park. And I want you to, for as long as possible, flex the muscle of awareness and boredom. Notice a bird, bird flies away. Notice your breath, breath is gone. Notice the boom, boom. And when you are done, you are done. That moment stays in that moment until you do it again. And the goal is to be able to do it for an hour. And I will tell you, if you want to see millionaires scramble like cockroaches, give them this practice. I do this intentionally because it took me a long time. But now I have people that on week one were like, I did 2.5 hours and I'm the happiest and clearest I've ever been. I have blank, 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 blank. And a very powerful quote I heard from another shaman, and this was given through a religious lens. He said, you want the answers. When was the last time you were quiet enough to hear God's whispers?
Huge, bro.
And bro, my brain went.
It's huge.
And then he's like, oh, hey, George, I know your type. You have a question. Your question is probably, yeah, but where do the thoughts come from? That's probably my ego. He's like, oh, you think out of thin air that your brain thought about that idea that you'd never thought about, or an angle that you'd never thought about, and somehow your suppressed ego came up with that? How about you spend some time listening? And bro, I'm gonna tell you right now, literally in front of this camera is an altar. My sound bowl, my crystals. I have an entire wall of my family photos with my meditation cushion. And every morning I sit there and I spend at least 5 to 10 minutes in silence just to listen. And 99% of the time, what I hear dictates how I spend my day.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Yeah, this is huge. And people that are in our programs, they know that's one of the practices that changed my life. And for me, in 5 minutes, George, I'll tell you this, like when I was in Bible school, there was people talking about like, go to a prayer closet and they pray for an hour. And I'd be like, dude, what? You're in a closet you're a weird cat. Like you're in a closet for an hour praying. I can't stay focused for 5 minutes. I'm like, I can't do it. So I always felt like, man, I'm not as spiritual as them. And oh, this is crazy. And so I was just like, what if I just had my own prayer time for 5 minutes? And every morning I've done this, where I'm quiet for 5 minutes, no distractions. And it's part of my personal brand. It's part of what we do in the personal development. It's part of the playbook I wrote. And I challenge people. I say, okay, I just want you to have a meditation time, a prayer time, but I want you to do 3 things. I want you to, if it's prayer, pray, but give thanks.
Yep.
You're giving thanks to the universe. If you're giving thanks to God, have an attitude of gratitude. Just thank God for all the small things. I don't care if it's the chair you're sitting in at the moment. That's all you could find to be thankful for. Give thanks. Then ask, right? What are you believing for? Faith. Like ask. Come boldly and ask. Like, hey, I'm believing for this. I'm believing for this. I'm believing for clarity. I'm believing for peace. Whatever it is, right? And then just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
And during that time is where I've got majority of the most creative ideas in business and life was during that time. I still get them to this day because we have so much chaos throughout the day that we're not quiet enough to get clarity or stay focused. And so, guys, that's a game changer in itself. And so, George, I know we could talk all day, man. Let's do this. Let's do this, man, because I want to respect your time.
How about we round two this? We have to round two this. We'll do an entire business show.
100%. Let's do it. And let's close out today. Just tell everybody in the business world what you do so they have some clarity. I know you talked about 7-figure businesses.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Just tell everybody what you do in the business.
I'll make it really easy. I'll use some ambiguity. I empower entrepreneurs to deepen their love affair with their customers.
Love it.
And so what I really do is I help people realize that the only path to create a legacy is ensuring that your customers get results and you're the one responsible for doing it. And all transformation happens through the results and not the sale. So through email, customer journey, and relationship development, I literally help people double, triple, quadruple their businesses without having any new customers come through the front door by deepening their relationships with their existing customers and catapulting their success. And so I own 7 or 8 of my own companies, all 7-8 figures and above. I consult with the biggest in the world, Vital Proteins, On It, Men's Health, Titleist, TaylorMade, the LA Clippers, all the way down to the entrepreneur who has the courage to ask me for help because I will never say no. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter who you are, but if you have it in your blood that you care about helping people and their results matter to you, I would love the ability to support you. And that's what I do every single day.
I love it, George. And tell everybody where they can find you, brother.
Yeah, man. The easiest place is listen. My podcast is called The Mind of George Show. I'm going to have JC on. I have to. We'll go forever. But here's what I'll do. If anything resonated with you today, if you have any questions, if you need clarity, if you're like, I need to off gas, I need to share, I don't actually want you to go to my website. I want you to send me a personal DM on Instagram. That's all I want. And so my Instagram is It's George Bryant. I handle all the DMs. If you have a question, send it. If I have an answer, I'll give it to you. If I don't, I'll introduce you to somebody. If you're stuck and you need support, send it. I'll find you an answer. I'll give you support. You need help, send it. But I will tell you that the brave get rewarded. You send the message, I send a response. Ask. If I can help you, if my team can help you, if my network can help you, if my friends can help you, there's a reason that you listen to this podcast today. And I would love to be able to support you on your journey. So just send me a DM on Instagram.
I love it, bro. I'm gonna close with 2 things really quick. The first thing is this. I want to tell you guys how George got on this podcast. And this is powerful, right? Because we're talking about give away what you want to get.
Yep.
You'll reap what you sow. George made a post, and I know George through a mutual friend, Alex Sharfin. I've seen a lot going on. I didn't know much about his business. Alex spoke highly of him. And so George made a post on his Facebook, and it said, hey, I want to get to know you guys. I would love to feature you on my podcast, but I don't even know what you do. And so there was, it popped on my feed. I don't even know why. I don't even really see a lot of your stuff at all. I didn't even know much about you. I just saw Alex mention you a couple of times. And so it popped on my feed one day, and I looked and I scrolled through like the first like probably 10, 15 comments. And I noticed everybody was like, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what I do. And I said, man, they all missed it. Why? Okay. I didn't for 1 second say, I got to tell George what I do because I need him on my podcast. I went and I said, George, I would love to have you on the Win All Day podcast. I believe. And so what do you like? Again, we're talking about relationships. That's what George is an expert on. We're talking about give away what you want to get. We're talking about what you sow is what you reap. So many people come from a place of desperation. I need to sell. I need to sell. I need to sell. I hate that sales tactic, right? I've got to hurry up and they don't even know you. They don't even like you. And you're trying to get them to buy a $10,000 product. And so I'm just telling you guys, this is how this connection came about and why he's on the show is I went with a servant mentality and said, George, let me help you. Let's get your message to the world. I would love to have you on the Win All Day podcast show. He responded and said, hey, let's make it happen. We booked it on the calendar, right?
Yep.
So
now this will probably be the first of 20 that are coming
out there.
Because like I'm kind of addicted to you already.
Hey man, much love. I feel the same way. Bro, let's do this, man. Let's end the show on this note, and then we'll book another one in the future. I always love to end the show with you saying, I am, and I'll talk to you more about what all the Win All Day brand's about in the future. Yeah. But I am George. I am a winner. I will win and win all day. Can you do that?
I am George. I am a winner. I will win and continue to win all day because I'm a loving, trusting, and passionate man.
Let's go. Yeah. Come on, baby. Hey, this is Coach JC. That concludes this episode of the Win All Day podcast show. Who loves you? I do. George does. We believe in you. And I want to remind you one last time, until the next episode, go win and win all day. We'll get at you guys next time.